I'm about to tell you something that will sound completely unbelievable, and I understand if you think I've lost my mind. 6 months ago, I would have thought the same thing if someone had told me this story. But what I experienced in the wilderness of northern Montana over the past several months has fundamentally altered everything I understood about the natural world and what's possible within it. I encountered a Sasquatch. Not just any Sasquatch, but one that possessed the ability to communicate in English with remarkable clarity and intelligence. Before you dismiss this entirely and move on to something else, I'm asking you to hear me out completely. What follows is the truth of what happened to me, documented as accurately as my memory allows. I've been living alone in a remote cabin in the Montana wilderness for approximately 8 years now. The property encompasses 52 acres of thick pine and spruce forest with a medium-sized lake positioned along the western boundary. I purchased this land following the dissolution of my marriage, when I desperately needed distance from civilization and all the complications that came with it. The closest town lies roughly 22 miles away, accessible only by a rough dirt road that becomes practically impassable during heavy rainfall or snowmelt. This isolation suits me perfectly. No neighbors peering over fences, no traffic noise, no obligations to anyone, just myself and the endless expanse of forest stretching out in every direction. The cabin itself is modest to the point of being Spartan. 3 small rooms total, heated by a cast iron wood stove that I feed constantly during the winter months, and powered by an array of solar panels mounted on the southern-facing roof that struggle to provide enough electricity for my basic needs. I supplement my diet by hunting game animals throughout the appropriate seasons, fishing the lake when conditions permit, and cultivating a variety of vegetables in a garden plot I've maintained behind the main structure. This lifestyle is deliberately simple, the kind that teaches you to value things most people take for granted, like a warm cup of coffee on a freezing morning or a pair of dry boots after walking through wet grass. I chose this isolated existence because I craved solitude and silence. I wanted to be forgotten by the world, and for 8 years that's precisely what occurred. Certainly, I observed wildlife on a regular basis. White-tailed deer appeared almost daily, black bears wandered through during spring and autumn, and I once watched a cougar cross my property in the middle of winter, its tracks perfect in the fresh snow. But I never felt threatened by these animals. I had learned to read this forest intimately. Every game trail, every meadow, every location where the deer like to rest during midday heat. That familiarity gave me confidence and peace. Everything changed approximately 5 months ago. It was early evening in July, and I was relaxing on my front porch with a glass of whiskey, observing the sun beginning its gradual descent toward the western horizon. The lake surface was absolutely still, reflecting the brilliant orange and crimson sky with perfect clarity. I remember thinking how these moments of natural beauty were why I'd chosen this life, why I'd walked away from everything else. Then I noticed movement along the lake shore, perhaps 250 yards distant from where I sat. Initially, I assumed it was another person, because whatever was moving through the trees was walking upright on 2 legs, maintaining a bipedal gait. But something about the movement pattern seemed fundamentally wrong. The figure was extraordinarily tall, far broader than any human I'd ever encountered, and moved with a strange, swaying motion that no person could replicate. I set my glass down carefully and squinted into the distance, trying to understand what I was seeing. The figure was heading directly toward the water, moving between the trees along the western shore with surprising fluidity despite its massive size. My initial thought was that a lost hiker had somehow wandered onto my property, which does happen occasionally, despite my location being miles from any marked trail system. But this was clearly something else entirely. The figure had to be at least 7.5 feet tall, possibly more, and was built with incredible mass. Not obesity, but pure muscular bulk, like an athlete who'd spent decades building strength. I stood up from my chair and went inside the cabin. I retrieved my hunting rifle from its position above the doorframe. It's a reliable weapon, nothing expensive or sophisticated, but I maintain it carefully and keep it loaded for emergencies. I wasn't intending to shoot anyone, but if there was a trespasser on my land, I wanted to be adequately prepared. I'd dealt with illegal hunters before, people who assumed that remote locations meant they could ignore property rights and game laws. I moved down toward the lake, walking carefully through the undergrowth and using the terrain to remain concealed. I've spent enough time in this wilderness that I've learned how to move quietly, how to avoid stepping on dry branches and rustling leaves unnecessarily. The figure was still moving when I began tracking it, heading straight for the water's edge with clear purpose. I maintained my distance, staying behind the larger pine trees, using shadows and natural cover to remain hidden from view. As I closed the distance to approximately 80 yards, I could see the figure with much greater clarity, and that's when my rational mind began struggling to process the information my eyes were providing. The figure wasn't wearing any clothing whatsoever. It was covered entirely in dark, reddish-brown hair, thick and matted, extending from its head down to its feet. Its shoulders were impossibly wide, and when it pushed aside a low branch blocking its path, I saw arms that resembled tree trunks more than human limbs, corded with visible muscle beneath that coat of hair. My heart began racing uncontrollably. This wasn't a human being. This wasn't a bear either, though I'd seen countless bears during my time here. Bears don't walk upright with such stability and purpose. They don't move with the confident balance this creature demonstrated. This thing moved like it belonged in this forest, like it had been here longer than I had, longer than the cabin, longer than anyone. The creature reached the lakeshore and stopped its forward movement. For several seconds, it simply stood motionless, looking out across the water's surface. Then it lowered itself down onto one knee, that enormous frame folding gracefully toward the ground. It leaned forward, brought those massive hands together to form a cup, and scooped water from the lake to drink. I was frozen in place, watching from behind a large spruce tree approximately 50 yards away. My rifle was still gripped in my hands, but I'd completely forgotten I was holding it. I was too focused on trying to comprehend what I was witnessing. This was a Sasquatch, a real, living Sasquatch. The creature that thousands of people claimed to have seen but no one could prove existed. The subject of countless documentaries, books, and campfire stories, and it was right there in front of me, drinking from my lake as casually as any deer or elk. Then it spoke. The voice emerged from deep within that massive chest cavity, resonating across the water with a depth and power unlike any human voice I'd ever encountered. 3 words, spoken in clear, unmistakable English. "Why you hiding?" I felt every drop of blood drain from my face. The creature hadn't turned around, hadn't looked in my direction at all. It was still kneeling at the water's edge, but somehow it knew exactly where I was. Then 3 more words came, delivered in that same impossibly deep voice. "Come out here." My mind went completely blank. Every survival instinct I possessed was screaming at me to run, to get back to the cabin, to lock the doors and never come outside again. But my legs refused to obey. I stood there behind that tree, rifle clutched uselessly in my trembling hands, staring at this creature that shouldn't exist and definitely shouldn't be capable of speaking English. The creature finally turned its head to look directly at me. Even in the fading light, I could see its face clearly. It wasn't the ape-like face I'd expected from documentaries and sketches. The features were strangely human, yet different. The forehead was pronounced, the jaw strong and wide, but the eyes were large and intelligent, watching me with what I can only describe as patient curiosity. There was wisdom in those eyes, an ancient quality that made me feel like a child being observed by an elder. "I not hurt you," it said, the words slow and deliberate, each one carefully formed. "Come here, we talk." I don't know what made me do it. Maybe shock had overridden my fear, or maybe some deeper part of my brain recognized that this creature meant what it said. There was something in its tone, in the way it remained perfectly still and non-threatening, that convinced me I was safe. I stepped out from behind the tree, my rifle lowered but still in my hands. The creature remained kneeling, making no sudden movements, allowing me to approach at my own pace. "Closer," it said when I'd covered half the distance. "I not hurt you. Promise." I walked forward on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else, covering the remaining distance until I stood about 15 feet away from this impossible being. Up close, the creature was even more impressive than it had appeared from a distance. The sheer size was overwhelming. Even kneeling, its head was nearly level with mine. The hair covering its body was coarse and thick, dark reddish-brown with lighter patches on the chest and palms. The smell was strong but not unpleasant, earthy and musky like forest soil and pine needles. "You live here long time," the creature said. It wasn't a question. "I watch you. 8 winters. You good man. Quiet. Respect forest. Not like other humans." I managed to find my voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "What are you?" The creature made a sound that might have been a laugh, a deep rumbling that vibrated through the air and seemed to resonate in my chest. "You call us Sasquatch, Bigfoot, many names. My people have different name, but you not speak it right, we just people. Different people than you. Been here before you humans come. Be here after you gone." That first encounter lasted perhaps 45 minutes. The creature asked me questions about my life in a slow, methodical way, clearly choosing each word carefully. Why did I live alone? What did I do each day? Did I have family? Other humans nearby? It spoke slowly, sometimes pausing to search for the right English words, but with perfect comprehension of everything I said in response. When darkness fell completely, it stood to its full height, easily 8 feet tall, and the sight of that massive form rising before me made my breath catch despite knowing it meant no harm. "I come back," it said, looking down at me. "We talk more. Tomorrow after sun goes down. You tell no one about me. They come, they hunt, they try to kill you, understand?" I nodded, unable to form words. The creature turned and walked into the forest, disappearing between the trees with impossible silence for something so large. I returned to my cabin in a complete daze. Part of me was convinced I'd imagined the entire thing, that isolation had finally broken my mind and I was experiencing some kind of elaborate hallucination. But the next evening, just after sunset, the creature returned exactly as promised. This time I was ready, or as ready as anyone could be, for a second meeting with a being that shouldn't exist. I brought no weapon, just myself and a thermos of coffee. The creature seemed pleased by this change. "You learn quick," it said, lowering itself to sit on a fallen log near the shore. "Good. This mean you smart, mean you can be trusted." Over the following weeks, these meetings became a routine that I looked forward to with growing anticipation. The creature would appear around dusk, and we would sit by the lake, talking until full darkness arrived and even beyond, sometimes continuing our conversations for hours beneath the stars. I learned that it was male, that he'd lived in these mountains and the ranges to the north for more than 60 years, and that his kind numbered far fewer than humans imagined. They lived in small family groups, never more than 5 or 6 individuals together, moving seasonally through vast territories that could span hundreds of square miles, avoiding human contact whenever possible through carefully honed survival instincts passed down through generations. "Your people take everything," he told me one evening, his deep voice carrying across the still water. "Cut forest, build everywhere, kill animals, poison water, make noise, bright lights, no balance, no respect. My people, we take only what we need. Give back to forest always, keep balance. This how we survive so long, this how forest stays healthy." He explained their way of life in patient detail, how they moved through the wilderness, leaving almost no trace that trained human eyes could follow, how they communicated across great distances through sounds that humans mistook for animal calls or wind in the trees, how they taught their young from the earliest age to avoid human areas at all costs and to vanish at even the distant sound of human voices or machines. "You different," he said, studying me with those ancient, intelligent eyes. "You live like we do, simple, quiet. Take only what you need from forest, respect the balance. This why I show myself to you. You ready to learn? Most humans not ready. They think they know everything. They think they smarter than nature. They wrong." And learn I did. Over the months that followed, the creature taught me things about the forest I'd never imagined, despite living here for 8 years. He showed me plants I'd walked past countless times without recognizing their medicinal properties. Certain roots that could treat infection, leaves that reduced fever, bark that could be made into tea for digestive problems. He demonstrated how to read animal behavior in ways I'd never considered, how to predict weather changes days in advance by observing subtle shifts in wind patterns and cloud formations, how to find water in seemingly dry areas by watching where birds flew at dawn and dusk. He taught me to move through the forest with genuine silence and awareness, to observe without disturbing the natural rhythms around me, to take only what I absolutely needed and leave the rest for the forest and its other inhabitants. But more than these practical skills, he taught me philosophy and a way of understanding the world that was completely foreign to my previous thinking. "Everything connected," he would say, his deep voice resonating in the darkness as we sat by the lake under the stars. "You, me, trees, water, animals, earth, sky, all same, all one thing, all one life. You hurt forest, you hurt yourself. You protect forest, you protect yourself." Human beings forget this truth, think they separate from nature, think they special, better than other things. This wrong thinking, this thinking that destroy your world. He spoke about balance constantly, returning to this concept again and again in different ways, until I began to truly understand what he meant. It wasn't just about taking and giving in equal measure, though that was part of it. It was about understanding that you were part of a system, not separate from it, and that the health of the whole determined the health of each part. "My people live this way for thousands of generations," he explained. "We see humans come, spread across land like water flowing downhill. We watch them cut trees, kill more animals than they need, take more than Earth can give back. We see what happens. Land becomes sick, animals disappear, water becomes poison. And humans, they sick too, but they not understand why. They think more things make them happy. More houses, more machines, more stuff. But happiness not come from having more, happiness come from being balanced, being connected, being part of something larger than yourself." I asked him once about his family, where they were, why he was here alone. His expression grew sad, something I hadn't seen before, and I realized that whatever capacity for emotion humans possessed, this creature shared it fully. "My family far to north," he said quietly. 2 females, 3 young ones. 2 are my children, 1 is my brother's child. My brother he killed 2 winters ago. Humans with guns found him near road, shot him many times. They frightened, they not understand what they seeing. They not try to understand, they just shoot. This is human way, too often." He paused, looking out across the dark water, and I could see grief in every line of his massive frame. "Our old territory, humans come there, build big buildings, cut many trees, hunt with machines that make loud noise, kill deer, elk, everything. No respect for balance, no respect for land. We cannot stay there. too dangerous now, so I come south, search for new territory for family. I search alone first, make sure area safe, make sure enough food, enough shelter. Then I bring family back with me. This is my responsibility now that brother gone. I must keep them safe. I must find place where they can live without human finding them hurting them. I find this place, he continued, is good. Forest thick, water clean, many animals, few humans. You only human for many miles. And you different. You respect forest. You live quiet. You no threat. But I find you too, and I think something. I think maybe you can be bridge. Maybe you can help other humans understand. Help them learn respect, learn balance. They never listen to us. They see us. They want to catch us, study us, kill us, make us famous. But you human, you speak their language. Maybe they listen to you. As autumn approached and the nights grew longer and colder, our conversations grew deeper and more philosophical. He spoke of his people's history, piecing together a narrative that spanned centuries, perhaps even millennia. How they'd watched human civilization expand across the continent from distant observation posts in the deep wilderness, pushing them into ever smaller refuges in the most remote and inaccessible terrain. We remember time before roads, he said, before cities, when humans few, scattered, live more like we do. Back then, sometimes we help humans, show them where to find food in hard winter, show them medicine plants. Sometimes we friends. But humans grow, spread, forget old ways, forget respect, forget balance. They take everything, want everything. Now, we must hide always, or be killed. I felt profound shame hearing this, recognizing the truth in his words. Even in my isolation, even with my simple lifestyle, I was part of the system he described. I depended on tools and supplies manufactured through industrial processes that clear-cut forests, polluted rivers, disrupted ecosystems. My truck that I drove to town once a month, my solar panels, my rifle, my cabin itself, all of it was built on the foundation of human dominance over nature rather than cooperation with it. What can I do? I asked him one night, feeling the weight of this realization. How can I help? How can I make any difference when the entire human world operates this way? He looked at me for a long moment before answering. You teach, he said simply. You tell others what you learn here. Show them different way possible. Maybe they listen to you. They never listen to us, but you human, you speak their language. You live in their world. You show them that simple life better than complicated life. Show them respect better than domination. Show them balance better than excess. You cannot change all humans, cannot change whole world. But maybe you change one person, that person change another person like ripples in water when you throw stone. Small action can spread far. In early December, as the first substantial snows began to fall on the higher elevations, he told me he was leaving. We were sitting by the lake as usual, though now I brought blankets against the cold and he seemed completely unbothered by temperatures that would have been dangerous for me without protection. I must go soon, he said, his breath visible in the frigid air, forming clouds that drifted across the water. Family wait too long already. I come here to find territory. Been gone 4 full moons now. They worry. They need me. I must bring them here before winter too deep, before snow make travel impossible with young ones. I felt an unexpected sadness wash over me, a sense of loss that surprised me with its intensity. This creature, this being that had terrified me just months earlier when I first encountered him at this very spot, had become something like a friend. More than that, really. He'd become a teacher who'd fundamentally changed how I understood the world and my place within it. When will you come back? I asked, hearing the emotion in my own voice. Will I see you again? Yes, he said with certainty. We make this our home now, these mountains. You see us sometimes, maybe not often. We must be careful, must stay hidden most of time for safety, but I come visit you when I can, when safe. You friend now. First human friend my people have in many, many generations, this special thing, not forget this. He paused, then reached into the thick hair on his chest and pulled out something I hadn't known was there. It was a stone, smooth and dark, about the size of my palm, with strange markings carved into its surface that I didn't recognize. The symbols were worn with age, barely visible in the fading light. "My grandfather gave me this stone," he said, holding it carefully in his massive palm. "His grandfather gave it to him, come from time long ago, before humans everywhere, before cities and roads and machines, very old, very precious to my people. I want you have it now." He extended his hand toward me, offering this ancient artifact. "You keep it. Remember what you learn here. Remember balance. Remember respect. Remember connection. When you touch this stone, remember that everything is one, that you part of something larger, something older than human understanding." I took the stone from him with trembling hands, feeling its weight, its age, the incredible significance of this gift. The surface was cool and smooth, worn by countless years of handling. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion I was struggling to control, "for everything, for trusting me, for teaching me, for showing me a completely different way of seeing the world. I don't know how to repay this." He placed one massive hand on my shoulder, the gesture surprisingly gentle despite the power I could feel in that limb. "You already repay me," he said. "You listen, you learn, you change. This rare thing, very rare. Most humans, they want to learn. They think they know everything already. They think they better than nature, smarter than forest. You different, you humble, you open, you willing to change understanding. This is gift you give to me. You show me that some humans still can learn, still can understand old ways." Then he stood, rising to his full height, and the sight of that massive form straightening before me one final time made my chest tighten with the knowledge that this might be the last time I saw him. The moonlight caught the dark hair covering his body, making him appear even more massive and powerful than usual. He looked down at me, his large eyes reflecting the moon's light, and I could see deep intelligence there. Ancient wisdom accumulated over a lifetime that had already spanned more than 6 decades. "Be well, my friend," he said, in that impossibly deep voice that seemed to resonate not just in my ears, but in my chest and bones. "Live in balance. Teach others when you can. Remember what you learned. Remember that you part of something much larger than yourself." That was 4 months ago. I haven't seen him since, though sometimes I think I detect movement in the trees, a large shape watching from the shadows. It's probably my imagination, but perhaps not. Perhaps he does return occasionally to check on me, ensure I'm still following what he taught me. I'm still here in my cabin, still living alone in the forest, but everything feels different. Now I observe the trees differently, listen to forest sounds differently, move through the world with greater awareness and respect. I think about him every single day. I wonder where he is, whether he found his family successfully, whether they're settling into these mountains. I've been keeping a detailed journal, documenting everything I remember about our encounters. I don't know whether anyone will believe what I'm writing. I don't have photographs or video evidence. It felt wrong to document him that way, like a violation of trust. But I have the memories. I have the lessons learned. I have the fundamental changes in how I perceive the world and my role within it. I have the stone he gave me, which I carry always. Sometimes during quiet evenings when I'm sitting on my porch watching the sunset, I think I detect movement in the trees, a large shape, familiar somehow, watching from the shadows. Perhaps it's just my imagination creating what I want to see, but perhaps not. Perhaps he does return occasionally, checking on me, ensuring I'm still following the lessons properly. I hope that's true, because even if I never see him again, I know this with certainty. He changed my life fundamentally and permanently. He taught me things I desperately needed to understand. He gave me gifts I can never adequately repay. I know what people will think when they read this, They'll say I fabricated it, that I've lost my mind from isolation, that talking Sasquatch don't exist. I can't blame them for that skepticism. If someone had told me this story 7 months ago, I wouldn't have believed them either. But I know what I experienced, I know what I saw with my own eyes, what I heard with my own ears, what I learned through patient observation. He was real, his intelligence was real. The friendship we developed was real. And perhaps that's the most important lesson. That reality is far stranger and more wonderful than we typically allow ourselves to believe. We think we understand the world completely, think we've categorized everything. But we haven't. There are beings living in these forests that exist outside our neat taxonomies and rational explanations. He was one of those beings. Not a monster, not an ape, not a missing link. Just a conscious being living his life, following wisdom accumulated over countless generations, who happened to cross paths with me and chose to teach me. In doing so, he transformed everything I thought I understood about the world and my place within it. I can't prove any of this occurred. I don't have evidence that would satisfy scientists or convince skeptics. All I possess is my story, my memories, and the profound transformations in how I perceive and interact with the natural world. But that's sufficient for me, and if even one person reads this and begins questioning their assumptions about nature, about connection, about our proper relationship with the larger web of life, then perhaps his lessons will continue spreading outward, rippling through human consciousness like stones dropped into still water. It's growing dark now. I should go inside, start a fire, prepare something to eat, but I'm going to remain here a bit longer, watching the forest, listening to the sounds of evening settling in around me. Sometimes I speak aloud, telling him about my day, about things I've noticed or learned. I don't know if he can hear me, I don't know if he's anywhere nearby, but it makes me feel connected, makes me feel like the friendship we formed is still alive and active. He taught me that everything is connected, that nothing truly ends. Energy simply transforms, shifts from one form to another, continues the eternal cycle. Perhaps that's true for relationships as well. Perhaps the bond I formed with him doesn't end simply because he's no longer physically present. Perhaps it continues, invisible but real, connecting me to something far larger than myself. I hope you've read this far. I hope something in this account resonates with you, makes you think differently about the world around you. He wanted me to teach others, to share what I learned. This is my attempt to honor that request, to fulfill that promise. Whether you believe my story or not doesn't particularly matter. What matters are the lessons themselves, the truths about connection, about balance, about living harmoniously with nature, instead of attempting to dominate it. Those lessons are real and valid, regardless of their source. The sun has set completely now. The forest is transitioning into its nighttime rhythms. Somewhere out there, perhaps in this forest or perhaps hundreds of miles to the north, he's doing the same thing, settling in for the night, living the same connected, balanced existence he always has. I'm grateful beyond words for every moment we shared. I'm grateful for every lesson he taught me, every truth he revealed. And I'm grateful to be here in this place, attempting every day to live up to what I learned. If you're ever in the woods and you feel like you're being observed, if you hear sounds you can't identify or see movement in the shadows that doesn't make sense, don't be afraid. Perhaps it's just your imagination. Or perhaps it's something else entirely, something ancient and wise, something that's existed here far longer than humans have walked this planet. And perhaps, if you're fortunate, it will choose to teach you something as well. He changed my life irrevocably. He showed me a completely different way of seeing, of being, of existing in relationship with the natural world. And now I'm passing that forward to you, hoping that perhaps you'll carry it forward as well. That's what he wanted. That's what I promised to do. The rest is up to you now. Up